I forgot to mention yesterday that I was doing my talk extremely fast, and so you all did a great job at keeping up with that. I forgot to tell you to put on your helmets because I condensed that into about 15 minutes, so you had a little bit of a lightning course there. But I think I can slow down a little bit more today, possibly, but we'll see how that goes. So, on today's episode of my non-technical talks for tech, I've got the case for justified text coming in with the context of, I guess, high school users or maybe non-technical users. So it's kind of just a brief talk. Oh, what's this? Oh. Boris, I'm gonna have to touch it.
Does it work?
I'm gonna have to, it's blinking.
Okay, just click on the next.
Oh, maybe I have to click on this?
No, just
the right arrow.
That is,
yeah.
oh, there.
Yeah.
No, okay, it does work. So, I had to update my slides because before coming here, as I mentioned previously, I made the slides before starting all my travels and got here. But on Monday, I had this mind-blowing experience where I created a tech document. And so I had to go back and change some slides. And this is a piece of what I created, and I think it looks quite nice.
Of course.
It does. And I have a slide, what is justified text, in case I'm going to be taking this talk other places. Amongst this crew, I think we agree what is justified text. So it's a two-part talk. One, just talking about my associates and what we do, and the second part is just a whole bunch of visual examples of how it looks on different processors. So justification in my life, mostly I deal with textbooks, curricular units, and educational resources, and that's going to span a few different things. These are the kinds of associations I guess I've had. I don't want to say jobs because I haven't been actively involved in all of them, but in publication of this forensic science book just I think 3 years ago or 2 years ago, the high school biology book for our district, most recently the Yale National Initiative, Literacy by Design, which is interesting because it's actually all a template, academic chess as I'd mentioned yesterday, and the Silicon Valley Science Engineering Fair. So those are the major areas where I see typesetting coming handy to my life. So I've opened up these textbooks, and now you see the forensic science textbook. It's got justified text, it's got pictures, and this one's published through CRC, and I'm still going through and looking for edits, typos, and factual information. For the East Side textbook, it's just got major problems. I mean, I'm looking at it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. I'm confused. We've got major problems because it doesn't actually look like it reads very comfortably for most of our students. And as expected, they do complain about how it just looks like something that's been typed and printed, which is actually all it is, so their complaints are warranted. The reason we have flex books, I have a laser pointer, but I don't, does Kavi see it on his thing? Okay, thank you. The reason we have that is that we're in transition for textbooks, next generation, science standards have come out, and although that doesn't quite concern you, it's changing pretty much all our textbooks that are being published. Okay, so I mentioned yesterday that I was I intended to typeset some chess textbooks. The problem with what we currently have is on the far right, and as you can see, it's not justified. The original hand-drawn things are unfortunately scanned over and over and over, so there's been a great degradation of quality, and they were last updated in 1999. So I think it's time for our students to get some fresher examples and something that looks nice. In the middle, we just have a publication on helminth worms and the immune system, and on the far left, we have the mechanical specifications that Yale requests us to submit with. You don't have to read any of this because they're just examples. So I believe that attractive products are underrated. Our students spend sufficient time complaining about the content. They complain about why we have to do this, why we have to do that, and that's kind of natural. I mean, it's part of the expectation, and I actually don't mind it because if they're complaining about it, I feel like at least they're engaging in what I'm doing to a moderate extent. Because if they're kind of apathetic, then it means they're just not paying attention. So complaining is not a bad thing. So despite that complaining, why not make things look nice? It's one less thing for them to fuss about. And in producing these things. Robert Bringhurst says, use the best available justification engine. I think that's in chapter 9. Okay. So my associates, my colleagues, the people who I work with, they're not typographers, they're students, they're educators. They don't typically use the best engine for 2 reasons. First is that they don't know what is the best engine, and second, because they don't know how to use any engine, whether it's good or bad. And that's actually a problem area that we're trying to fix up. For their purposes, though, how much does it really matter? How much can they tell the difference? What they want to do is they want to produce and read clean. They want to produce and read clean, usable, and professional-looking documents. When you're a student, you're pretty impressionable. You don't want to read something that looks ill-prepared because it makes it much less credible. I'm not certain if that's a problem in the higher levels of education where they trust you more, but in high school, it's a constant effort to get them to buy into what you're doing and what you're presenting to them. What they lack, or what we lack, I should say, are time, money, and motivation, of which money is actually the least of our concerns. Time is probably one of the biggest ones, and the motivation fluctuates depending on the level of the institution or individual, or even in individual students. We have some students who are highly motivated, they go to college. We have ones who kind of sit and breathe all day and do nothing. They're not the ones who are going to be typesetting. Breathers. So for our purposes, our basic software options are really Microsoft Word and all its clones, and I include things like LibreOffice and OpenOffice as Microsoft Word clones, as well as Google Docs, because the behavior is generally the same. Corel WordPerfect and Adobe InDesign, and although I pluralize the basic software options, students generally only have access to Microsoft Word because no one's ever heard of WordPerfect. And Adobe InDesign will usually come from some of the visual arts teachers, yearbook instructors, and so on. But I include them because it is an option that's easily obtained. This is unrelated to justification, but I made it a few weeks ago and I thought it looked nice. Just had to give you a little commercial break here. So we were working on some gene drives and I had to do some diagrams. And just because I thought it looked cool, I wanted you all to see that. My students don't appreciate it, so I had to bring it somewhere. Thanks for indulging me. In those last 3, or in the previous 2 slides ago, you saw that I only had 3 basic software options, but LaTeX wasn't listed, and I couldn't explain why, besides just having the cop-out of I'm not a tech user. I don't have that cop-out anymore. But it wasn't listed because I asked my father to help me produce something so I could do side-by-side comparisons. And this was his email reply in red that I've highlighted. I learned a lot and haven't done all that you requested as things started looking the same. And so a few days later, he sends me a text message and he says, I never thought much about justification unless it was outright ugly. That's how he felt. So this here is not outright ugly. It looks kind of okay, but it's not quite beautiful. And so this is what I actually submitted into the Yale units. And my checklist comes back and they tell me that I don't have 1.5 inch margins at the top. My right margin was not supposed to be justified, but I justified it, so someone actually noticed that. And my indentation, I didn't use spaces, I actually used my tab button. And they didn't like that either, so they bounced it back to me. So I did what they said, and now I've got a ragged edge, and I still kind of didn't finish doing what they asked me, but I might just go renegade on them. I don't count on them watching this video. And part 2 now is looking at text side by side. It's all filler text, so there's no content. It's just to see how they look. You're going to see the same things twice, except the first part, I don't identify them, so that you will be a little less biased in what software you think it is. Then in the second part of my second part, you'll see them labeled by name. So, we've got some side-by-side here. And like I said, you don't have to read it, you're just looking at how the lines look and how it kind of looks as a whole. So if you're picking something up to read it, this is what you're seeing. And it's easy to notice the non-justification, but some of the bloating is harder to see. So if you're just kind of doing a quick read, you might not notice that. You might not pick up on that if you're not, I guess, a typographer, or if you're not well trained in this. You don't have to be well trained, you're just used to it. This is let's see, what cues did I give myself? This is another software, so you see the behavior slightly different if I go back and forth. You see some of the text lines move, but not entirely much. What's here? Oh yeah, so here you see I'm just going back and forth so you can see the difference, but it's actually fairly minor. Very small difference there. So if you're a student reading it on the right side, you don't notice too much of that has changed. And here's another one, and there's another one, and here's another one, which is possibly more recognizable within this community here. Yeah. This one here has a mistake in it because it didn't meet the specifications I'd asked for. I needed some spaces between paragraphs and so on. This is what my father gave me, and I wasn't going to go back and change it because I didn't know how. Should have emailed you guys. And as well as this one here. Didn't quite meet what I had asked for, but it's what he was able to do in that amount of time. So here I identify them. You see InDesign with the ragged right. It comes by default with hyphens, but you're able to just get that mess out of the way. But you're able to remove them, which you're going to see, I think, in the next slide. It's full justified with hyphens on the right side, and it looks fairly balanced. InDesign right ragged with no hyphens, so you see a slight difference between those two. So if you're looking at the left side of the screen, sorry, you see those there. And on the right side you see it without hyphens. You see small behavioral differences. Here InDesign gives you an option for metric versus optical kerning, and so kerning is just spacing between letters, and it kind of adjusts for ligatures and letters that fit together. And you see minor differences once again. Word, right ragged, no hyphens, that's how it comes as default, but you also have a full justified with no hyphens. And actually you see a little more bloating in Word, but it's not as bad as it used to be. I believe I created this with Word 365. What's the newest one? I really don't know, because I don't use Word. I don't. Word Perfect here, once again the default is by no hyphens when you come straight out of the package. I've actually changed my default, so my default is justified, full justified, and with no hyphens. LaTeX, we've got a right ragged, no hyphens. It's actually just a mess like that. And I have this file that said it had hyphens, but I don't know if it's because it's filler text, it did not hyphenate, but I didn't see any hyphens when I looked at it. Someone could address that for me. LaTeX, full justified, no hyphens, and the LaTeX default where you actually have rather nice margins. So it's actually a readable page rather than just stuffed onto a page. So just a few comments running here. Word doesn't actually have a filler text in the drop menu. You actually have to type into the document equals lorem ipsum or something XY. So you specify the number of lines per paragraph. I didn't know that. I'm like learning about words. I'm doing a presentation that's not on Word. Another behavior on Word though is that while helping people do things, they're always asking me questions about Word, and I just look it up because I don't know how to do it. So wouldn't it be nicer if they already don't know how to use Word, maybe they'd rather ask me questions about tech and I could learn tech and help them out with that. I mean, seriously, if they don't already know it, why not? I also found out that PDF export, the results are often cropped differently between these softwares, so you might have seen some of the jumping text, and I'm not familiar with the export algorithm, but there's something different going on with the cropping, so I had some adjustments in there.
From Word?
From Word, yeah. So in Word Perfect and InDesign, I could export and I still have the correct margins. Whereas when I export from Word, it crops it right at the border of the text, and I don't know why it does that. And then a few comments on, I don't need a comment, the line is right there. Hyphenation and line issues. Hyphenation is just a big problem. But is it justified now? So I was saying that I do this in the context of student groups, mainly in the high schools, and most people agree that it does look more clean, more controlled, more credible for all that it's worth. The kerning differences are noticeable when you see them side by side, but it's probably negligible for that population. And for most of these softwares, full justified text is just 2 keystrokes away, so why not create that clean, crisp look? I do have a few, no, what am I doing? Oh yes. So I had another slide originally, and that slide was a proposal that my student had, one of my students had, for an actual experiment regarding this, like to run tests and see, is there a difference? Can people notice a difference and so on? But I was reading the abstracts and I noticed that Boris and Layla actually had one of those. So for now, I thank you and I'll field a few questions, but the next talk will be Boris and Layla, who's actually presenting a study on how much the justification matters. So thank you again for your attention.
Herb.
Yes.
Have you used the microtype?
Herb's question is about the
Microtype.
microtype. I have not used it. I am not familiar with it, and I have heard of it for the first time just now. Yes.
Just, it's a question, it's a comment. Even if you put right in tech, it doesn't mean that hyphenation is completely off. It still might hyphenate if it thinks that it tries not to. So I'm just saying that it was a problem for us when we wanted to completely switch off hyphenation. It's not as simple as just saying right.
Thank you, Boris. So Boris made a comment on the hyphenation.
And it must be language dependent.
Yeah, and it's language dependent.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much.
Thank you.